Hello and welcome to the second of the presentations in the City of Unley's Town Hall talks on the topic of food, glorious food. And the subject of that series is protein for active aging. Today's talk is going to be about a project we've been doing over the last year, which is called Nutrient-Dense Foods for Healthy Aging. And it's a grant that was given to Potatoes South Australia by the Primary Industries and Regions Department of the South Australian Government, Advanced Food Manufacturing Program. And Potatoes South Australia wanted to work with the University of Adelaide, a company called Test Kitchens SA, and also Dietitian Services. This presentation is given by John Carragher from the University of Adelaide about that particular project. Now, this is me, and please note I am not a nutritionist or a dietitian. I'm actually a food scientist. So please do not take this information in the presentation as specific nutritional advice. Please see your doctor or an accredited dietitian for advice that is specific to you, your particular needs, and how they might be affected by your particular circumstances. Knowing that I'm not a dietitian, we actually had the project team come together that had an accredited dietitian involved in order to cover this area. So, why? Well, we know that older people often struggle to meet the recommended daily intake of protein, which is about 1 gram per kilogram of body weight per day. So if you're a 70 kilogram person, you should be eating about 70 grams of protein every day. When we do food intake analysis, we find out that many people, older people, are getting less than half of the recommended daily intake of protein, which is a real concern. To understand the reasons why, I strongly encourage you to watch Joy Gibson's excellent presentation in this series and find out why that's the case. Now, there's also good evidence that some of the loss of muscle mass that we see in older people, a process called sarcopenia, is due to inadequate protein intake. So if you're not eating protein or enough protein, you can get additional loss of muscle mass. And that's obviously not a good thing, because muscle mass is important for keeping your balance, being able to walk, be active, and have confidence around your environment. So the theory is that increasing protein intake as you age may prevent some of this decline in muscle mass. Obviously, you need to do some resistance exercise and things like that in order to make use of that protein in order to build those muscles. But unless you have the building blocks of muscles, for muscles in your diet, you won't be able to maintain that muscle mass. So, how do you take in protein? Again, Joyce's presentation goes into this in great detail. You can get proteins from a number of different foods, things like meat and fish, legumes, beans, pulses, many eggs, excellent sources of protein. From those, you get between 10 and 30 grams of protein per 100 grams of the food when it's cooked. So it's a relatively high source of protein in those foods. Some other way that you can get protein is through supplements. These might be prescribed to you by dietitians or by doctors, and they come as a drink. They usually contain about 6 grams of protein per 100 mils when you make them up with water. Some people can take these quite adequately. With other people, they struggle to get that volume of water down in order to keep that level of protein intake high. Other ways that you can get that protein are through fortification of other foods. For example, we're starting to see it with things like yogurts, but also some ice creams, other products. And this particular brand of yogurt has 15 grams of protein in the serve, which works out to be about 9 grams of protein per 100 grams. So clearly 9 grams of protein, if you're a 70 kilogram person, is over 10% of your daily requirements, which is a good way of getting that. Our approach in this project has been protein supplementation by stealth. So our aim has been to fortify real foods that older people like to eat. Our targets with dry foods, we want to get about 15% of that as protein. With wet foods, we're aiming for about 10% of protein. And you'll see how we've done that in some of the later slides. To do this, we've used a variety of protein sources, things like chickpea flour, lentils, soy grits, egg white powder, gluten flour, skim milk powder, and whey protein. The choice of which one to use is basically determined by which one works best in the food that we're trying to add it to. When it comes to labeling food, we're trying to get these products into the shops and be made by food manufacturers. One of the first questions they ask is what labels can they put on that food in terms of content claims and health benefits. If we look at the standard for Food Standards Australia and New Zealand, where they have a thing called the Schedule 4, Nutrition, Health and Related Claims. And if we're looking at the property of a food, in this case we're looking at how much protein it contains, a general claim condition is that this food must contain at least 5 grams of protein per serving, particularly when it's about high protein foods. So it needs to contain at least 5 grams of protein per serve. If we want to have a claim that a product has a good source of protein, we need to get at least 10 grams of protein per serving. If we go for a claim which is about increased levels of protein, then the food must contain at least 25% more protein than the same amount of a reference food, and the reference food meets the general claim conditions for a nutrient claim about the protein, which basically means the food contains at least 5 grams of protein per serving. So those are the conditions that food companies will be interested in order to put claims on products that meet expectations for health nutrition claims. This is a list of the products that we were trying and we developed during this project. And you can see the list of product here. So we've got 2 different versions of ice cream, creme caramels, date and fig bites, cheesecakes, chocolate chip cookies, down this line, and also the table extends over to here to the right hand side. And you can see we've got a number of different items that cover breakfast, snacks, main meals, and treats. We've compared them to existing commercial products that are out there in the supermarkets, and then we've put in what protein levels we have been able to achieve through our efforts, and whether a protein claim of increased source or a good source of protein would be allowed for such a product. So if we just look at ice cream here, existing products contain about 4% protein. We've been able to increase that by 2.5 to 3-fold in order to increase your intake of protein just by eating ice cream. A food company could put both an increased source and a good source of protein on those particular items. So you'll see as we go down this list, in most cases, we're doubling or tripling the amount of protein that is in the products that we've constructed and that we're trialing with our trial participants. You'll notice that some of these items don't have any extra claims being able to be made about them, and it's because the serving size is such that you don't meet the threshold for 5 grams of protein per serving. So levels of protein are so low that a protein claim can't be made about the existing product, and so the legislation does not allow us to make any claims about increased levels of protein because this starting level is so low, even though we can get quite high levels of protein into those foods. Not only do the foods have to have the right content, they have to look good. And these are some of the products that we trialed, and obviously we're trying to make them as pretty as possible. So we've got some bites, we've got cheesecake, stuffing, biscuits, some more protein bites, creme caramel, almond bread, spaghetti bolognese sauce, pumpkin soup, some breakfast items that with egg and bacon that resemble a pie, but also others that are much more like a turnover, some banana bread, ice cream, and some breakfast fritters. So we did some sensory trials with the products that we'd made, and those sensory trials, we were aiming for people in our target age group, and that was people who are 65 or older, and we managed to get 65 of those. That's what the N equals 65 means. They were a mixture of people who were in independent living, in alone or with partners, supported or residential care individuals. We did the trial at 4 different sites. We had a site at Helping Hand, ECH, we had a session with the Marion Lions Club, and we had another session with the City of Unley Buddies at Breakfast group, which was all men. So our sincere thanks to all of those individuals and all of those organisations for allowing us to do this work. So, of the people who took part in the trial, we had a total of 33 men and 22 women. If we look at their ages, we can see that we had a lot that were here in the 65 to 70 group. The 2 bars, the blue ones show the number of males or the percentage that were males. The red ones are the percentage that were females. So we had a lot that were 65 to 75, and then we had fewer between 76 and 80, 81 and 85, and then 86 to 90. So that was our demographics for our group, and you can see we had females and males in all of those categories. We only had 1 male in that 86 group and no females. We asked them what their living arrangements were. Most of them, over 80%, live independently at home, either by themselves or with their partner. A few had at home with some support. Very few had at home with daily support, and a very few people were in residential home. We asked them how they took care of their food. Most of them do their own shopping and food preparation, particularly those that live as couples. Some have help with their shopping but do their own cooking. Some have help with shopping and cooking. We didn't have anybody who had meals delivered in this particular group. And then we had a very few had all of their meals prepared for them. And this is really indicating the group of people that we want to target with this particular strategy. These are still active, healthy people in the community who are looking after themselves. So we gave the products to the participants. Not all of the participants had all of the foods because there were quite a few. And what I'm showing you in this slide are the responses to 3 of the items. We had pumpkin soup, ice cream, and almond bread. The numbers after here indicate the number of men, followed by the number of women who had that item and gave a response to it. We gave them 5 different options for responses: awful, dislike, neither like or dislike, like, or like very much. And people basically ticked which box applied to them for this particular food item. So you can see our pumpkin soup was a big hit. 70% of people liked it, and 20 to 30% of people liked it very much. I think one person didn't have any preference on the soup. We didn't just ask them what they thought of it, we asked them for any constructive feedback. So underneath here, we've got some of that constructive feedback. Good flavour, a little more salt, a bit thick and sweet, maybe some ginger or chili. Very nice, but leaves a little aftertaste. Needs more spice. Ice cream was again well thought of by our respondents. Over 50% of people, both men and women, liked it very much. About 25% liked it. About 15%, about 10% had no preference. Only a few people disliked it, and one person thought it was awful. Comments included: excellent, could live on it. Too sweet, too much honey, extremely tasty, better than store-bought, which is too sweet. So again, very encouraging. Our almond bread was also well liked. Again, a lot of the women loved it, thought it liked it very much. More men had like rather than like very much, but again, very positive comments. So that's very encouraging. Unfortunately, not everything was as well received. So banana bread, we gave it to a total of 34 people, and the responses we got back, we only had a few people who liked it very much, a few people who liked it, maybe 30% overall. Again, 35% neither disliked it or liked it. We had quite a few, about 15%, who disliked it, and again, one friend who found everything awful. So comments included: it was bland and dry, doesn't taste like banana bread, very bland, needs ginger or nutmeg, dry. So all comments are good, they're positive. It tells us what we need to do into the future in order to get this product improved, so that companies might be interested in making it and selling it for this particular purpose. Another product that we've made, which is basically a milk biscuit, which is a bit like a Scotch finger. And again, we had a lot of people who neither disliked it or liked it. So a lot here in the middle category. We had very few people liking it very much, few people who liked it, few people who disliked it, and our friend again, who didn't like anything. The comments here were very, very constructive. They were all along the lines of, it's a bit hard, but would be perfect for dunking. Not too sweet, perfect for dunking, yum, yum, yum. Too hard, no flavor. So again, this gives us something to aim for when we're trying to improve the product next time around. The breakfast offerings were not particularly well received. Bacon and egg pancake was one of them. Again, we had some people, maybe 40% of people who liked it, but quite a few people either didn't have a preference or actively disliked it. So the texture needs improvement. It needs more bacon and eggs and less pancake. and one kind person who told us, please just start again. So with all the results, what are we doing now? Well, we're taking the results to established food manufacturers to basically demonstrate to them that this market for the older generation who need increasing levels of protein in their diet are a genuine market sector that they can cater to. And we've also shown them that people in some of those comments are prepared to buy those products if they were available to them. So we've presented the information, the results, to a number of different food companies in South Australia and across the country in order to try and get them to do a range extension for their existing products. If they're biscuit makers, they can come out with a range of products which is high in protein for an aging population. So we presented the material to them. We had some positive feedback, but then we had COVID intervening, and basically food businesses were somewhat distracted by the changing marketplace and the implications of positive tests for their staff. So in the last couple of months, we've not been able to make too much progress on the commercialization of these products. That's the end of my talk. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking part in the whole event. If you want to contact me, please get me on my Adelaide University email, john.carragher@adelaide.edu.au, or contact the City of Unley folks, either Judith Lowe or Alyssa Hill, at the numbers on this slide. Okay, good luck.